music or pop music or just or folk music, whatever, is still there because of that. And it's now at the point, I think, where people write their own music. It's definitely the case here, and it's very much, I know, the case in America and England and places like other places in this part of the world. So they make their own music. They develop friendships and relationships by doing that. They form groups and they go out and they play, and they explore a whole artistic expression and way of life that wasn't open to them before that. They make their own records. They record their own stuff. That's a big thing, and I think so. They gave that to people, and by giving that to the people, in a way, it kind of democratized the whole thing, like this democratization of what they call the music industry. So everybody can kind of go in the room. They express themselves through the song, and then they record it, and then they put it online, and someone else can hear that. So I think that's really a positive thing that the Beatles gave in that kind of cultural, musical sense. However, then what they also did is they created a mass music industry because they were so big and they made so much money for so many people, and they influenced so many people to go off, make records and make money and make all this, that it created a business. And that business is kind of, and the business is more in many ways than music that's created. And that's kind of the negative side of things. So now we have people who are able to make their own music, express themselves to it, but they have they're sold this idea of being famous, being rich, or making it big, and so also have the means to do that. So you don't just have a guitar that you get for 50 quid anymore. You've got to get like really good electric guitar, and you've got to get an amp that, and you've got to get pedals, and then you've got to be able to go and record on some kind of recording device that's going to cost you money, and so it's a business that's being generated at the expense, I think, largely at the artistic side. The artistic side is lost there. So again, the shadow side seems to be overtaking the more positive side.
Sean, we're pretty much out of time, but can you give us a quick overview of the other two books about the leaders of the pack and Spectre? Like, what would we find there?
Well, the Girl Group book is, I guess I grew up listening to 60s music, and it wasn't until I think, I knew some of the girl group bands from Motown and things like that, Supremes and the Vandellas and the odd song from a few other groups. It wasn't until, I think, maybe it was like 12 years ago, that someone just gave me a copy of this CD by the Shangri-Las, and I listened to it, and I was quite blown away with how modern sounding songs were today, even for indie. And I started kind of hearing that influence on a lot of the music, particularly the male the music I would have listened to from the 60s. And I just kind of went out and find more music like that and found it to find it. I couldn't find anything on the groups. There wasn't any books really. There wasn't much in terms of stuff online. There was a few things I came across. And but the more I started to listen to it and, try to get the music from wherever I could, I just was really impressed with it. I thought, this is great. And these girls have kind of been written out of pop music history. So, I tried to follow that, took a number of the most important, significant groups, say, and I just kind of looked at them and their influence on the culture at the time. And I was really just wanted to look at their influence on the bands that I had listened to, but that led into, to the culture, etc. And then I was kind of fascinated with how that the girl groups in the 60s had changed and evolved into what they were, with Lady Gaga and I suppose from Madonna to Britney Spears to Lady Gaga, or the Spice Girls or the Pussycat Dolls or what, these kind of groups, and how there had been a huge change, I felt, a huge change in how, I guess how women have been presented, in the 60s, through the 70s, the 80s, and how women maybe behaved as regards that. And I'm kind of interested as to whether, again, there was some kind of manipulation involved in that. And so that's basically what that book is about, kind of a homage to the girl groups of the 60s and their influence on the other groups of the 60s and 70s. I mean, they were a big influence on punk in many ways. So it's kind of interesting. and then how also there was a change, and I think a much greater change for women and girls in music. The guys, it's kind of much more or less stayed the same. It hasn't changed too much since the 60s.
Mm.
So that's what it tries to look at, how and try to see was that change manipulated more so by the media for girls than it was for guys, So that's that book. The Spectre book tries to just look at, the publisher asked me to do the Spectre book. They wanted it for their series called the Tempo series, which looks at popular artists in context of their cultural significance. And so I really just look at Spectre. I didn't really know what to contribute to that because there's so much on Spectre, but they asked me to do it, so I did it. And I tried to look at music more so than his life in biographical terms. But the music, I think, very much, this kind of, you can see how his life changes from. It's quite interesting in a way. What was interesting about doing the Spectre book is that I kind of knew his music particularly from doing all the girl group stuff, because obviously he had a big impact in that genre. But a lot of the music I knew from Spectre, apart from things like To Know Is to Love Him and stuff, was mainly the girl group 60s stuff. Some stuff he did with the Ramones then in the 80s, and the odd thing he did with Lennon or the Beatles, obviously helping to tidy up the Let It Be album. But I only really realised he had done a huge amount before the girl group period. Just a whole load of music. Some of it's very good, and some of it's not so good. I suppose the peak of it is that, when he he creates the wall of sound, and he's got the crystals, and particularly the Ronettes, and this huge, force in popular music. Really, it's hard to realize, I suppose, now, because you're looking back quite a long time, but a real force for about 2 years, which obviously in one way, was very influential musically on everything that was going on in pop music at the time. And obviously great for him that he could express himself and, have this success, but also seemed to kind of totally ruin him at the same time.
Yeah, he's incredibly powerful guy with a tragic ending. Speaking of tragic endings, we're out of time. So Sean MacLeod, can you give us an idea? How can people locate you? I know you got a Facebook page, right?
There's a Facebook page for me. Yeah. Sean MacLeod, musician and author. That's where you'll find. I used to kind of do the Facebook thing and do all that, and I just kind of got a bit, it really takes, when you're trying to write books and write music, you find you're trying to, on Facebook or on these social network sites, trying to promote what you're doing, and then you're not doing what it is that you are promoting. So I just don't really bother too much with that. I have a YouTube channel as well where people, if they're interested in the books or what I have to say, my music kind of covers a lot of those themes as well. So I don't know where you'll find me. You can go to the Limerick Writers Centre and you can get the book. You can get onto the Ed Oppenheimer show and you can hear the interview. But yeah,
okay, Sean.
Too much promotion, I guess, so much now. I just let the universe take care of that.
Sean MacLeod, thank you so much. Okay, we're out of time.
To the God. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much. Good night. Okay, Sean MacLeod, the website is thelimerickWriters.com. You can find him on Facebook, like you said, and check out these other two books, because these are really fascinating topics, Full Spectre and At the Wall of Sound.